Hey, what's wrong, kid?
I broke my controllers playing Population 1 with my friends. I can't play VR games now. I only have one controller.
Why don't you just play Rogue Ascent?
That sounds boring. I'd rather play Gorilla Tag.
Get over here, you little shit. In Rogue Ascent, controllers are entirely optional, allowing you to use the almighty finger guns to blast your way through your enemies.
Whoa, yeah, that's pretty cool. Ah, what the f***?
So I was reached out to by the Virtual Athletics League with an offer to make content for this game early. Me, in the need of more dopamine than I currently have from the amount of VR games that I currently have, graciously accepted, not knowing what I was getting myself into. This game blew me away. Mostly. Let's talk about it. So this is Rogue Ascent, a new Roguelite FPS VR game that just launched today. This game does not need controllers to be played. I had dabbled a bit here and there in the Quest 2 with hand tracking with first hands and VR chat, but I haven't seen a game fully built around the idea that you can only use your hands to play it. No controllers needed at all. Much less a first-person shooter where you traverse a spaceship trying to save the planet from its alien invasion. Holy shit. As mentioned earlier, it's a roguelite. What does that mean? You basically run through a set of randomly generated levels, and when you die, your score is saved, but you have to start all over from the beginning. This game is very similar in gameplay loop to games like Drop Dead the Cabin and Ancient Dungeon, to where you go into a level, you get as far as you can, and you level up and get extra stuff after that level. But it does so in its own way. The game itself is a very sci-fi futuristic setting, given that it takes place on a spaceship, and you, the main character, are breaking into the spaceship to save this planet from an alien invasion. It's got cult members, it's got aliens, it's got robots that shoot these deadly laser things at you. It's pretty cool. But clearly the story is not the forefront of this game. I mean, it's there, but it takes a backseat to the actual gameplay of this game, which is amazing. Rogue Ascent has a lot of interesting gameplay choices that help make using your actual hands feel very natural, but also really cool. Rogue Ascent uses a teleport-based movement system, which for this type of game works perfectly when you compare it to something like VR Chat's weird pinch-to-move thing. To teleport, you just look for a footpad on the floor, hold your hand up, and you just automatically teleport to it. That's it. It's simple, smooth, and really effective. And it prevents immersion-breaking moments that can happen with non-teleport based movement, such as running into a wall. Putting your hand up isn't just used for moving though. You use that, along with various other hand movements and gestures, to interact with the game and the environment. The stop gesture lets you move, open chests, lockers, and doors. Pinching lets you interact with various buttons on vending machines, work tables, and the devices you have on your wrist. Holding both hands up creates a shield in front of you that lets you deflect enemy fire. And of course, to use your guns, you simply fold your fingers backward and make a finger gun. Or two, cause you got two guns. Normally here's where I'd say how things feel. Like in a game like Boneworks, the guns feel smooth, fluid, and realistic. But I can't really say how they feel in Rogue Ascent because, well, you don't really feel them. Your hands are both the guns and your hands at the same time. There's no controller feedback to feel like you're gripping a pistol or pulling a trigger on a super powerful revolver. It's a very bizarre feeling. Now, this game does let you use controllers if you want to have that feedback, but the game is really designed around playing without them. This concept kind of reminds me of something that Brendan, the lead developer of Stress Level Zero, said about having controllers in VR while demoing Boneworks to Node for the first time.
I think when a lot of people started looking at VR, they originally thought that they wanted like hover fingers, you know, they want to be able to like grab at the air and stuff like that. And what we found is that the controller itself is like the proxy for whatever you're grabbing, right? So you grab the controller and you grab the item, and when you synchronize that with the hand, it feels really good and you get like that sort of like tactile feedback of like, oh, my hand's on the controller right now.
This is an example of what Brendan said about people wanting holographic hands. I'd argue it works for this game, but it does leave you missing that tactile feeling of you're grabbing a gun. It sparks the question, could a game that doesn't utilize controllers replicate the same feeling of grabbing something with them? Obviously the answer is yes, with an asterisk, because things like force feedback gloves are being made for this exact purpose. But I feel like this will be an interesting conversation to bring back up once again, once more games release that utilize hand tracking. It definitely is a video I do want to dive into in the future. Okay, outside the whole controllers versus no controllers conversation, The mechanics in this game feel intuitive and fantastic. Directly pressing buttons or pinching them, if they're too far away, feels intuitive and really smart. Traversing each level and using your guns feels smooth, and reloading them by simply tilting your hands back and letting them is a really cool touch. It's honestly really hard to find any flaws in the mechanics of this game, given how simple everything is, and how that simplicity works well with the hand tracking. The only issue I've had with the game is running on my old Quest 2. I'm not sure why, but the game at some points has been wildly inconsistent with how it runs. Sometimes it'll run smooth as butter, and sometimes it'll be laggy as all hell. That being said, I don't think this is the fault of the game, more or less the fault of my headset and the hand tracking in general. My Quest 2 is about 2 years old, and its age is starting to show, with me having to end streams early routinely because the battery's about to die, even though I have it plugged in. So my guess is that having that extra processing power in this game to track your hands versus using controllers is what's causing this extra lag that I'm experiencing. So if you have an older headset like I do, you may have some trouble running this game. But if you have a relatively new Quest 2 that came out in the last year, or a Quest Pro, which has infinitely better processing power, then you shouldn't have too many issues. So I got the game about 3 weeks ago, and while that would normally be enough time for anyone to fully play through a good chunk of the game, I didn't necessarily get the chance because of, well, my headset. From my experience, the game is very fun, but there's also some extra stuff that I got from the devs that I didn't get to experience. The game has 5 different classes you can unlock, and each of them lets you customize your abilities and stats. This, in combination with the randomly generated areas, keeps the game fresh for anyone who enjoys roguelike games. There are multiple bosses you can fight if you get far enough into the game, and after seeing some of the posts on Twitter, they look very cool. And one last thing this game has a lot of VR games don't, is Twitch integration. Again, I wasn't able to try this out because A, I don't stream VR games on Twitch, and B, the game's exclusively Quest 2, and my internet is garbage. But from what I've read and seen from it, it looks like a very cool idea. Basically, if you're watching someone stream, you can spawn things in to either help or hurt the streamer playing it, which sounds both fun and chaotic as hell. So if you see anyone playing this game on Twitch, try it out. I'm sure it'll be a very fun time. With all that covered, what are my overall thoughts on this game? It's a very cool game. From what I've seen, it's the first attempt at making an FPS game without controllers, and it does a really good job at it. Sure, it doesn't have the same super realistic physics or graphics you see in games like Boneworks or Half-Life Alyx, but for one of the first games to utilize hand tracking this well, I have to recommend it for anyone who likes roguelites, is interested in more games that use hand tracking, and for anyone who just wants a fun and chaotic experience in VR. It just fully launched today out of early access, and you can find it for $25 on the Quest 2 or Quest Pro. There isn't a PC VR release for it, as I don't think PC VR has hand tracking yet, but if PC VR ever does get hand tracking, and it does get a PC VR release, I will definitely stream it someday. But what do you think? Does this game look cool? Have you tried Rogue Ascent? What are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing. I live stream here on YouTube every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, and post content whenever it's ready. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good night, y'all.